Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com and by RockAuto.com. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
I am indeed John Davis and the podcast host. Thank you, Alec Webb. Welcome to MotorWeek's podcast number 139. And around our table, I don't know what shape this table is. It's not exactly.
It's like a modified triangle.
It's like a modified triangle. Writer, producer Brian Robinson.
Hello.
And there he is, road test producer Ben Davis.
Nowhere else I'd rather be. Good
and
to see you
assistant
guys.
producer Greg Carlos. Don't ask the rest of us that question.
Yeah, I think it's more of an amoebic triangle to go back to the.
And our writer, Patrick Lucas.
Hello, everybody.
He's a trapezoidal fan. All right,
just well-documented trapezoidal fan.
We have a lightning round. Viewer questions. We'll see if anyone has anything to rant and rave about. But first, some cars and vehicles to get into. Chrysler Pacifica. The Town and Country and Grand Caravan are gone. The Pacifica is back, but as a minivan. Chrysler's new hope to revive the minivan market. Who wants to start?
Oh, just a quick question before Greg starts on this one. Did they officially say that the Grand Caravan is gone?
It's going to be in for. They're going to run them side by side for another year, and then the Grand Caravan's gone.
Probably for fleets. I would imagine.
They're not going to sell anything outside of
Carry on.
Every time every manufacturer's ever done that, it's been for fleets. But having said that, this is a big risk. They're not going to have the name recognition for either the Grand Caravan or the Town and Country, although I think both those names will come back somehow. So it is a big risk. And the Pacifica was not a particularly successful crossover utility.
Yeah, I find that a little bit strange. That was immediately after hearing the news that it was going to be the Pacifica. It was kind of odd that they would take that risk and associate a new vehicle with something that wasn't necessarily welcome as a whole. But I came away pretty impressed. It's not going to revolutionize the minivan segment, but it's very, very nice. It still uses a 3.6-liter V6.
5.
Is it 5 or 3.6?
6. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 3.6. And updated, some new tech. It actually gets 28 miles per gallon city.
Talk about the second and third rows.
It's highway. Sorry,
It's still got stow and go seating, but they made it better. How?
So now there's a button you can press on the front seats. That one press it'll push the front seats forward.
So power,
right? Power pushes it forward, and then it's just one lever. And they assist. I think they now assist it into the floor, so it's pretty. You don't really have to use a lot of effort to get it down into the floor, and it is easy. It's probably the easiest system out there, and it's quick. So, did you spend any time riding in the second row? I didn't ride in the second row. I spent a little bit of time playing with their new Uconnect theater back there, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, they got a lot of games. The touchscreen is really responsive and kind of shocking at how good the technology is back there. I did sit in the third row for a good amount of time.
All right. This is a moment of truth here. How tall are you?
6'3".
Greg is 6'3". I watched the video of you in the back seat. You didn't seem to have any problems with headroom.
No, the headroom was actually really nice.
That surprised me.
Yeah, legroom isn't great, but again, it's better than a lot of the crossovers and the larger three-row SUVs that you're going to get into.
It's got power recline. It's available on the third row.
Yep, all nice and easy.
You've got the hands-free opening of the sliders as well as
which they didn't have activated for our vehicles there. But, it will be available. Same with the rear hatch. We'll have the same thing. But they do have the one touch now. So where they said the problem was younger kids have trouble still pulling the door to get it to automatically open.
Same.
Yeah, Patrick knows what we're talking about here.
The strength of a small child.
But it's just a one press button, and they go for convenience here. And actually driving the thing, it drives pretty nicely. It's got a ton of power.
It's
actually,
a new platform.
A ton of low end torque, and actually you spin the wheels pretty easily. And I took it on to Ortega Highway, which I don't. If you don't know, it's a pretty hardcore road out there in California, and it handled itself pretty well. It wasn't really. There weren't many scary instances.
Is there going to be a Hellcat version?
They said, that question came up. No, not yet, but I'm sure we could dream about it.
Do you drive the hybrid?
Did they? Yeah.
No.
Did they say anything about the hybrid? Did they say anything about an all-wheel drive hybrid?
No, they you know how PR people are. They don't like to talk
About anything that they're
so
not ready.
Speculate.
They certainly leave the door open. They let you kind of make assumptions, but there is no plans as of right now.
If there's one disappointment I had, and it certainly was expected, the hybrid battery takes up the space under the floor, so you lose the stow and go
Right,
seating.
no stow and
that's too bad, but then I'm not sure what else you'd do. It looks like a nice vehicle. I mean, the market for minivans is still about 500,000. There will be a new Honda Odyssey this year, so that will be an interesting duel between those two. It's down this year. 2015 there were a few fewer sales than 2014. Does anybody think the minivan's going to make a comeback? I mean, there's some thought out there, including I think some of the folks at FCA, that the next generation coming up will say, "Hey, I don't want a crossover like my parents. What's the minivan?" Think that could, because it is such a useful vehicle.
I hope so.
Yeah, it might climb a little just because, kids that be buying minivans maybe grew up in minivans now, but I don't see it ever being anywhere near crossover sales.
That it was.
Did they,
Let it be known.
Or
I was
even what
shaking
it
my
was.
head
Used
in
to do well
disagreement
over
there.
1 million sales a year.
they made this one to sort of not look as minivan-like, so I think they're kind of like trying to blur the line.
No,
That's
I'm
what
sure
that's what
it's
they've been
clear.
trying to do for
Yeah.
years, though.
Yeah,
It's just
Nissan tried that with the Quest.
Okay.
And I bet the
I
new
thought the
Odyssey
Quest
takes
looked
up-
awesome, actually. I like the Quest.
Yeah.
There is a love for minivans. A lot of people probably won't want to admit it, but anybody who's ever rented one and driven one, you can get away with a lot in a minivan.
You sure can. You don't have the higher floor of a crossover that can cut into space.
You can drive fast and not get noticed by cops. You can do a lot of stuff.
Back to what Brian was saying, though, I don't necessarily agree that kids now didn't really grow up in minivans per se. We're at the point now where they were in Expeditions or Tahoes, Suburbans. So if they do make a comeback, it's not going to be in the next 20 years, I don't think. I think people are going to have to almost completely forget about the minivan. And then
Haven't they almost done that now?
Yeah, you have to rediscover it because it is. I mean, I think a lot of us think it's such a practical vehicle.
Yeah.
And just for whatever reason, people just hate saying they have a minivan.
It looks like a well done vehicle. It'll be interesting to see how it does.
So you're wrong, Robinson, is what I'm saying.
Okay,
going around a
he's
lot
thrown
lately.
the gauntlet
Move
down.
on before we get into a fight.
Okay.
Come on, we need some
I'm
conflict
used
on
to
this
it. I'm used to being
podcast.
wrong, man. I'm used to it.
We're just way too nice.
Porsche Cayman GT4, a car that I think all of us enjoyed when we took it to Roebling. What's your impression of this? Is this the ultimate, I won't use the word affordable, but the ultimate basic sports car from Porsche, or what? Hey, Brian,
I wouldn't
why
say
don't you
it's
start?
anything basic at all about it. It's basically, which, we've already gotten to the point where most of us prefer Cayman to a 911 anyway, and now this is taking every cool part off of the 911 that you can and putting it on the
into
Cayman.
a Cayman.
It's got the 3.8 liter 6. It's got all the suspension stuff from the 911 GT3 brakes.
And even
from
some
the
cool
GT3.
stuff in the interior, like the door straps and stuff.
Yeah, it's just take some weight out. Manual transmission only, which, I don't know the last time the Porsche did that. So
That is hardcore.
It's an impressive piece, no doubt.
It even looks like a 911 from a distance.
Yeah, from far away, it's hard to tell the difference. It sounds amazing. And, yeah, it was unbelievable. So much fun. It does a good job making you feel like you're driving something special. And it is something special because, it costs a lot of money. It costs just as much or more than the base 911.
$300 more than a base
more.
911,
Yeah.
which I'm not sure how many base 911s ever get sold.
Do you think you're getting more car for that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're getting more car in that than you are in a base 911?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For sure.
And you're getting a car, I think, that makes you feel like you're in a sports car, what you bought a sports car for. The problem I have with the 911 now is it feels almost too big, and, I've never quite thought it was – it's a fabulous car, don't get me wrong, but it always just felt a little large for what it was purported to be, at least the last few generations of it. But, yeah, pretty cool. Okay, let's performance car of a totally different color that we also had at this year's.
It actually was the same colors. They're both yellow.
Oh, that's right. All right.
Not that we've been paying attention.
Of a different type, but still considers itself a world-class sports car. The Ford Shelby GT350R Mustang. Everyone. Who would like to start with that? I mean, that to have that and the GT4 on the track at the same time, that's a pretty cool just see the pants comparison that you get to do.
I was on the track harder than I've ever been on that track before in that 350R. That thing just handled so flat and it had so much power, so much brakes. It was unreal.
But was it as easy to drive as the GT4? Because the GT4 is just, you kind of just put the pedal down and just let that thing do its work. I mean, did you feel as safe, I would say?
Do you want a Shelby to feel that way?
I felt so excited in the Shelby that probably there, I'm sure there was a little more danger involved. But I also felt so in control that I was just euphoric and everything else was blanked out.
Those cars have totally different attitudes. And I think actually when you came back from that event, I was asking you, I think, if like this felt like as nailed down or as like dialed in as like a Porsche. And you said...
I said it does. It does in a muscle car way.
So
I mean,
like you've got extra heft, you've got more heft to throw around, but it's still
all those inherent senses are there, but it definitely feels as capable as a Porsche to me.
Do you feel that something as traditional as a Shelby GT350R, when you throw it into the corner, you can be, I don't know, induce a little bit more oversteer quicker, have a little bit more throttle steering with it. I mean, it does feel very different on the track.
Yeah, you have no problem dealing out some throttle on oversteer if you want, for sure. That engine is insane. I mean, we've talked about it at length already with different podcasts, but 5.2 liter. Revs to 8,200. I mean, just when you think the power's going to drop off, it's got like another $2,000 worth of power coming at you.
It seems like a car that you could give it enough time, enough laps, you could know it like the back of your hand and really start to get surgical with the oversteer.
And I don't know, is it sold out? Because it's a relative bargain.
I don't know that it's sold out because there's dealers just marking up like crazy on it.
I heard it's a six-figure car, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean they've just put such ridiculous markups on it, which the MSRP is not bad, but
no, it's cheap.
Yeah, as the last couple of Shelbys have been. So we had a lot of fun at Roebling this year. We took all of our junk down in vans, minivans, no minivans, but vans. And we had a good time, but the Cayman GTR4 and Shelby GT350R, I think, were two of the big highlights. Let's move on now to our lightning round. Our panelists have 2 minutes to debate trending automotive topics. When time's up, they're going to hear the bell. Our home state of Maryland, and its wisdom, the legislatures therein, have proposed a bill that would require the use of original equipment or certified parts for repairs, mostly meaning body repairs, for the first 2 years of a new vehicle's life. They say it ensures quality. This is the backers of the bill. However, critics are saying it really is a gimme to the dealers and that it could drive up prices, particularly your insurance prices. Let's cut to the chase. Does the consumer really benefit from some kind of a bill like this, or is it meddling in things the government shouldn't meddle in? What do you think? Any particular? I mean, if you have a new car and you get into a fender bender, and if a shop doesn't want to do anything illegal, they have to use OEM body parts, which means a better fit, let's face it. At the same time, the insurance company, which would probably like to get away with non-OEM parts, is going to have to provide them. And so that means more cost for them, which means more cost for you.
I worked in a body shop for a couple of years, actually, and from what I remember, the majority of the new cars would get OEM sheet metal. It would only be the cars that were really pushing the boundaries of being totaled out or not, cars that would be later inspected again by an insurance company, and cars that might have hidden damage and stuff that use the aftermarket stuff.
So, my insurance policy, I actually get to opt for OEM parts.
Yeah, I think a lot of them require it. Insurance companies will require the OEM parts already.
I think one of the things that the auto bodies have brought up were in the case where you mentioned where something's close to being totaled, if it's within that 2 year bracket, the period, right?
That could actually force a car
then it's going to be totaled if they got to go all OEM parts. So
that's a very, very good point. Yeah. I hadn't heard that argument. That makes sense. If you got a car that's marginal, non-using OEM parts, could keep it on the road, which for most buyers, given that they have long loans, is probably preferable to having it made salvage.
Well, I mean, cars in general today, when you look at a fender, it's so much more smaller than a fender was 10 years ago. I mean, most of a car now is front bumper cover and hood, and these parts are increasingly, I mean, they're not structural parts, they're basically decoration.
Cosmetic.
So I've noticed with using our GoPro mounts, the metal's getting thinner and thinner and thinner. So I would imagine, even when we were pricing out a replacement 911 hood, I could get one from a dealer for, I think, under $500. It was like $300 for a hood. Yeah. So, I mean, these parts aren't really all that much money.
There's been several attempts over the years, at least one in 2004, and I wouldn't be surprised to see others in Maryland, to somehow drive more of the parts business to, it seems like these either OEM parts or I have to say there's also something called certified parts, which are not OEM parts but may well be made by the same people that made the OEM parts. I think what they're really after here is the really cheap copied parts that are not made with factory dies or factory specs that make your car, the gaps wide and don't really fit very well and require a lot of work. I'm just not sure that we need legislation here. It seems like that the buyer needs to be a little bit smarter about their repairs. But I don't know. Okay. Didn't come to any good conclusion, but it was a good discussion. Here's one. This is a viewer question from Barbara. Barbara says, I currently own a 2003 Mitsubishi Eclipse, which I love. Recent knee surgery has made my car too low to easily get in and out of. I'm looking at my new car. I shudder to think I will be consigned to some dowdy, functional, sensible sedan. Do you know an affordable sports car, and I'm going to say sporty car, Barbara, that features sleek design but has to settle for something she doesn't want to settle for something boring. I'm not a teenager, but I don't want an old lady car either. Any suggestions would be appreciated. So primarily, she's looking for something slick that looks young and has height adjustable seats.
Well, first I would probably sue the doctor, because if you went in for knee surgery and they lowered your car, that's a major problem. I kid, of course. That is not what she said. No, it's written right. I just thought I was being a jerk. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Barbara.
Answer Barbara's question.
I would say
Challenger.
Challenger. Oh, it's a Dodge Challenger for sure.
Yeah.
Very high seating position, easy to get in and out of.
Yeah, Dodge Challenger too.
But there's a lot of stuff with low seating positions that has height adjustable seats. Scion, FRS, Scion TC, BRZ from Subaru, for that matter, Mustang and Camaro all have got height adjustable seats. If you want a convertible, we've got this Buick Cascada, which has got quite a adjustable height seat in it, and it's a convertible to boot.
I had some, but I feel like they're going to sound like teenager cars now, because I'm reading my list.
Well, Barbara doesn't want anything that would make her look or
she didn't want anything old lady like.
Right.
But, okay, WRX, you might have just mentioned that.
Yeah.
GTI.
Good one.
Amazing.
Good one.
Genesis Coupe, because she also prefaced she wanted something a little older, like a used car.
Right.
So Genesis Coupe, Focus ST.
Solid. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's a solid one. So, Barbara,
I think I would stay away from a Genesis Coupe. That thing rides really rough.
She's coming out of a 2003 Mitsubishi Eclipse, which was not exactly a car noted for its ride, but it was a good-looking little car. Well, Barbara, what?
Carry on.
Said it wasn't much. It wasn't much of anything.
It wasn't noted for much of anything.
Wasn't noted for much.
Well, it wasn't Fast and Furious.
You remember, you guys, Brian remembers. Okay. Remember when we took? Was it the Eclipse or the Chrysler counterpart, the Eagle, that we took to Roebling? That was a long time ago.
Got to dig back in the retro.
That was before your time, probably.
It actually didn't do badly, except it just shredded its tires.
Well, the early ones were nice. It kind of lost its way towards the later gens.
Barbara, I hope you have some help. The answer, I think, from us is that take a look around. There's actually a lot of two-door coupe-ish and a couple of convertibles. within a reasonable price range that have, once you get up in trim level 1 or 2 notches, will have some kind of power adjustable seats. Most all of them have a manual height adjustment to the seats as
Phone
standard.
book? Is that an option?
We
don't have phone books anymore, do we?
We don't really. No, we have
What's the
phone.
deal?
Maybe at your house.
We have web
Not at my
sticks.
house.
We hope that helps you a little bit. Speaking of everyone being raucous.
Okay.
I have a rave. No, I have a rave.
Rants and raves.
I have a rave.
Patrick.
So it's possible. That's funny. That's the second funny joke you've had today.
Well, I'm still embarrassed from the first one.
EVs, I think we have a Nissan Leaf just to preface. Nissan Leaf, right, 2016. It's got over 100 miles of range,
Which
right?
does a lot to take care of the range anxiety.
Exactly. So
yeah.
I think we're finally at a point where EVs are legitimate cars to live with.
as a second car,
I
a
would
commuter
argue
car.
even a first car. The Bolt is going to have 200
The
miles,
Bolt,
right?
I can't wait to try.
And the Tesla Model 3. But even this Leaf,
You mean as an only car?
yeah. I mean, because I commute. I have about 25 miles from work to home.
I'm renting a sweet pad at the beach this weekend, bro. Why don't you come on down?
That sounds weird and creepy. But anyway.
Can I come?
He didn't even ask you.
So, yeah, I'm driving. I drove home with full charge. I got to my apartment, and I still had...
And you don't have...
It's a lift.
I still had 100 miles or like 90 miles of range.
And you don't have out... We should preface,
Right.
you don't have outside charging. at
Right,
your
and
apartment.
So where would you plug it in if you bought it?
Well, I wouldn't live in an apartment forever.
Time for.
But the point is, you could
I
drive
forgot-
it.
Just
You
park
could
at
probably have
Walgreens.
driven it for 2 or 3 days.
The point
without
is
worrying
that I
about it.
didn't charge it overnight that night and still had plenty of range to get back to work and run
Where you
errands if
could
I
have
needed
charged
to.
it.
Wheeze the juice.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I could have charged it again. So I'm just saying.
I'm
EVs
extremely intrigued with the. I've said for a long time that the 200-mile range at a reasonable price. Well,
I just
reasonable
think-
price for electric car is going to be a game changer, and I think the Bolt's going to do it, and the Tesla
see.
Model 3 if they
We'll
ever
see
do
about
it.
that.
I just thought getting
and I
into
think
that
the Leaf
triple
will
digit.
probably do it. They'll probably come back with another upgrade pretty quick.
Well, yeah, I mean, cresting 100
Yeah.
miles of range was a big deal. But yeah, now
really
200, I
did.
think we're close to the point where those are legitimate first and only cars, maybe.
Yeah, every time I see somebody on a trip that's got, like, say, a Tesla Model S, because you see them with 200-plus range, we know one person that bought one and after a couple of years got rid of it because he thought it was still a glorified golf cart, but he seems to be the exception. Everyone else I've talked to seems to love it. They plan their trips so they can be near the DC fast chargers. They go have a meal, it come back out, it's 85% charged, and they go on for another 250 miles. So they tend to seem to be very, very happy.
I mean, do you guys like driving them or not? Is that why you're giving me a hard time? Do you just not like driving EVs? Or
I
what?
love EVs.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, do you like the way they drive? Like,
I don't think most of them drive like we would like to have a car drive, but they're competent.
I think they drive great. Almost everyone we have in.
The
you know,
E-Golf
like
is
drive.
great. I
Yeah,
really
the
love
E-Golf was probably the
I
best
like
driving
the,
electric car we've
I
ever
just
had.
think it's a stretch still to call it your primary vehicle.
I like the
Certainly-
BMW one.
yeah.
Certainly
Wait,
your
which one?
primary
Not the
commuter
three,
vehicle,
the
but
Right.
sports car.
The i8's
I wouldn't.
not a-
I'd still
it's
want.
not
I have to
full-
admit,
it's not
when I
all
go,
electric.
when I get something that I
Should
want
be.
to take on a long trip, I'd like to know that I can. When it gets down to when I've done a couple hundred miles and I've still got 100 miles left in fuel, I'm happier. If I was kind of like limited, knowing I couldn't go more than a couple hundred miles, that still would bother me as an only car. But
I just thought that was a pleasant surprise
yeah,
in this Leaf. That
absolutely.
was my experience.
And I have to say, you're the second or third person on the staff in the short time it's been here that's made similar comments. So, congrats, Nissan, that breaking that triple-digit barrier.
What's a full charge range typically?
I think it shows like 115 or 120.
Cool.
Brian
It's like
said it was
120.
123 when he
Yeah.
left his house last night. So, the other Brian.
Yeah, reasonable temperature.
Okay. Let's wrap up our MotorWeek podcast number 139. Thanks to all involved. Writer-producer Brian Robinson, road test producer Ben Davis, assistant producer Greg Carlos, and writer Patrick Lucas. Our audio engineering duties have been done once again by Jim Bigwood. Our podcast creator is Bob Mixter, and this podcast producer and the guy with the bell is Patrick Lucas, of course. Thank you all for watching MotorWeek on public TV stations around the country and also on Velocity, and for listening to our podcast, for being one of the million a month that watches our videos on YouTube. We greatly appreciate that, and that visits our MotorWeek.org website. We basically couldn't keep doing this without you. Thanks again for writing, for being part of MotorWeek. Until next time, I'm John Davis. For all of us, be safe out there, and thanks for keeping MotorWeek in your life.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com and by RockAuto.com. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at MotorWeek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.